Hi, today I'm going to talk about mindfulness and overcoming complex PTSD and self-talk, your inner dialogue, the voice that runs inside of your own head. And I'm going to borrow something from Pete Walker's book, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving. It's a really good book, I highly recommend you get it. In the beginning. I opened the book and went, in the beginning. In the beginning there was the word. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Psychologically speaking, mindfulness is taking undistracted time to become fully aware of your thoughts and feelings so that you can have more choice in how you respond to them. Do I really agree with this thought, or have I been pressured into believing it? How do I want to respond to this feeling? Distract myself from it, repress it, express it, or just feel it until it changes into something else? Mindfulness is a perspective that weds your capacity for self-observation with your instinct of self-compassion. It is therefore your ability to observe yourself from an objective and self-accepting viewpoint. It is a key function of a healthily developed ego and is sometimes described as the observing ego or the witnessing self. Mindfulness is a perspective of benign curiosity about all of your inner experience. So mindfulness in this context, being mindful, which is, I've just ruined a note, which is something that I once heard Eckhart Tolle say. He doesn't like the term mindful, because he was like, it suggests you're full of mind, where you should be empty of mind. You should just be aware. A little bit pedantic, but it's a good point. Mindfulness in this context is you are aware that you are aware. And the person who is aware is the one who is aware of what you are aware of. So it's the observing point of view inside of you, that perspective inside of you that can let you watch your thoughts as they play out and let you watch your feelings as they play out. The more you practice being mindful and observing as a second person, observing your thoughts and your feelings, rather than just being them, being the thought, being the feeling, but just observing it as what it is, which is just a thought or a feeling, the stronger you will get and the quicker you will improve in your progress through overcoming the traumas of emotional abuse and complex PTSD. Sorry, I was on the wrong page there, but it's actually quite good, and it relates to what I'm going to talk about next, which is the self-talk. Okay. Furthermore, CPTSD can also be caused by emotional neglect alone. It doesn't require anything more than just emotional neglect. This key theme is explored at length in chapter 5. You've got to get the book to explore that key theme. If you notice that you are berating yourself because your trauma seems insignificant compared to others, please skip ahead to this chapter. Emotional neglect also typically underlies most traumatizations that are more glaringly evident. Parents who routinely ignore or turn their backs on a child's calls for attention, connection or help abandon their child to unmanageable amounts of fear, and the child eventually gives up and succumbs to depressed, death-like feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. These types of rejection simultaneously magnify the child's fear and eventually add a coating of shame to it. Over time, this fear and shame begets a toxic inner critic that holds the child, and later the adult, totally responsible for his parent's abandonment, until he becomes his own worst enemy and descends into the bowels of CPTSD, Mr. Pete Walker writes. So, that that abandonment by your parents, that kind of emotional neglect, doesn't look that harsh. The example I usually give is people saying, well, they didn't put cigarettes out on me, at least they put a roof over my head and gave me food. It actually causes you to, the abandonment of your parents causes you to self-abandon, causes you to abandon yourself, and you end up with a very strong inner critic, a berating, belittling, shameful, toxic voice that's always telling you what a piece of shit you are and how useless you are. So that's the second part of what I wanted to talk about today, which is self-talk. Pete Walker calls it the inner critic, the voice inside of your head that is malignant, that is hypercritical, that is constantly telling you that everything you're doing is wrong. For people who don't have CPTSD, they'll be thinking, what the hell are you talking about? No such voice exists. It does for people who were raised in certain childhood conditions. So on the subject of inner dialogue or self-talk, this is Pete Walker now. I cannot overstate the importance, I have something in my eye. I cannot overstate the importance, he said, it's an eyelash. That's what should be in my eye, an eyelash. of becoming aware of your inner self-commentary. With enough practice, mindfulness eventually awakens your fighting spirit to resist the abusive refrains from your childhood and to replace them with thoughts that are self-supportive. So people always ask me, how did you overcome it? And I'm like, well, it wasn't any one thing. There wasn't like some big enlightening moment. There were a series of things that helped, a series of attributes that I developed. But as Pete Walker describes here exactly, I developed mindfulness until I became aware that there was a voice in my head that had an agenda. And I had the mindfulness to one day go, hey, this fucking voice that keeps talking, it always has an agenda to push me back to self-loathing, self-defeat and self-abandonment, no matter what I do. So then, as he describes, my fighting spirit to resist came up when I started questioning this inner voice and going, well, why, what's your point? Where are you trying to direct me? What is the point of what's the agenda here? What's the point of what you're saying? Instead of criticizing me, why aren't you supporting? Why aren't you being helpful? I was trained in NLP, so we were trained also as well, that helped to be aware of the inner dialogue. And I was like, why is this inner dialogue always so harsh and critical? To resist the abusive refrains from your childhood and to replace them with thoughts that are self-supportive. I started demanding that from this malignant inner voice, and eventually it just went away, because every time it came up I just demanded that that it become more supportive. Now, because I imagined that inner voice, it was around the time of like Lord of the Rings 1 or 2. This is back in 2006. I remember where I was living in London. I was living in Bermondsey, and I was in a car park there, and I just had this revelation where I was like, right, I'm now going to create an anchor so that every time this inner voice comes up, I'm going to demand that it be supportive of me. Now, I imagined that inner voice that was malignant as Gollum, as a little, Gollum had like, there was Gollum, the good voice, the good personality, who wanted to be a friend. He was one of the fishing village people. No, he wasn't. That's the wrong way around. Smeagol was the original person. They weren't the same sort of race as the hobbits, but they were like the hobbits. They were like peace-loving people who were river people, they were called. That was Smeagol. That was the original guy. He becomes Gollum. He becomes this nasty, malignant, dark, twisted addict, borderline type, through his obsession with the ring. The ring eventually corrodes his soul. So I had this Gollum running in my head, and then I was like, every time Gollum spoke, I'd be like, well, I demand that you be supportive. I demand that you be a cheerleader. And then I imagined Gollum in a cheerleading outfit with twiddling some pom-poms around, and then every time it came up I started to laugh. Bitterly. I wasn't like, ha ha ha, what a joyful, funny thing. I was like, yeah, that's kind of funny in a dark way. And it stopped. It worked. So this mindfulness and becoming aware of your inner dialogue is hugely powerful. So every time that happens to you, you can imagine Gollum in a cheerleading outfit and you demanding that he cheer for you from the sidelines. And eventually it just stopped. It just went away. But it does take time. Those neural pathways have been practiced and practiced and practiced your entire life. So to give them the chance to sort of die off in a new neural pathway that is moving towards options and humour and a lighter sort of sense of freedom, is going to take time to develop. And you just rep it out. How do you get stronger on bench press? Do more bench pressing. Do more reps of bench press. Do like a progressive overload program, but nobody has a progressive overload program that is like 3 gym sessions long. It's 20-25 sessions long, and it's going to take 8 to 12 to 16 weeks to a year for you to see progress. So it's having that dogged determination, that ferocity of intent that says, I will win. You will submit to me and I will win. I will dominate you because it's my body, it's my brain, it's my fucking life. Okay, so then the other thing I wanted to talk about was a part of the Pete Walker book. On my version, my edition, it's page 311, and it's in the self-help tools section. You really should get this book. I think I got mine for like £7, $11 on Amazon. In conclusion, you progress in recovering from the multi-dimensional wounding of CPTSD. 1. As increasing mindfulness decreases your unconscious 4F acting out. That's the 4F trauma response styles: fight, flight, fawn and freeze. If you've not read the book, you would do well to sit there and think, what is your style of responding to stress? Do you fight? Do you flight? Do you fawn? Do you freeze? Do you get angry? Do you try and run away from it? Do you freeze and try and numb yourself out with drugs and alcohol? Or do you fawn? Do you seek to negotiate and please the people in the environment until the danger goes away? You progress in recovering from the multidimensional wounding of CPTSD as increasing mindfulness decreases your unconscious trauma response. 2, as your critic shrinks, the inner critic, the berating voice, the Gollum voice. Nobody likes you. I can't do, like, nobody likes you. It hurts. That's the Gollum voice. You know, Schmeagol, that side of his brain, wants to make friends with the hobbits, and he's like, don't kill them, they're just nice little hobbits. And then the Gollum voice comes in and goes, no, stupid fat hobbits. No, I'm going to give up. And he's nasty, he's mean, he won't allow friends. And his justification for hating the hobbits is to say, they don't want to be friends with you, they want to trick you, they're nasty, they're mean, they're vicious, fat, greedy hobbits, and they want to steal the precious from you. Which is how, you know, the psychopathic, narcissistic mindset frequently works. It justifies its own evil by saying, well, the world is full of evil, the world is full of corruption. You will recover from the wounding of CPTSD part 3 as your brain becomes more user-friendly, which is a funny turn of phrase, one that, you know, you do need to learn how to run your brain and make it more user-friendly. Number 4, as grieving your childhood losses builds your emotional intelligence, and nothing else will. Nothing builds your emotional intelligence like grieving what has actually happened and facing the reality of you, of your life, of your history. Number 5, as your body relaxes and your mind becomes more peaceful, as your healthy ego matures into a healthy sense of self, as your life narrative becomes more self-compassionate and self-affirming, you must develop the skill of altering your narrative of your life to be more self-championing, self-compassionate and self-affirming if you want to heal. I'm focusing on healing a lot at the moment. If you've noticed the recent videos, and it's like an acceleration. I'm like, come on, you've got to heal, heal, heal. Just focus on what you do want, which is to heal and move forward. As your emotional vulnerability creates authentic experiences of intimacy, one of the biggest things that I developed, that for me personally, and everybody's different, but my emotional invulnerability, me being an armoured man, was really, really blocking my healing process. And as I learned to become more vulnerable, and what the power of that vulnerability was, I did actually manage to create more authentic experiences of intimacy, and that also helped me to emotionally mature, to grieve, and to heal and move on. And finally, as you attain a good enough, safe relationship, good enough is in inverted commas in this book, and what he means by that is that we get away from any sort of neurotic, hysterical sense of perfection. It should be good enough. It talks about good enough parenting. It should be good enough. It should be if it's non-abusive and there's basic respect there and just the normal, you know, stuff that should be there, a bit of love and affection and mutual likingness and mutual respect, that's good enough. And that's the basis of a healthy relationship, which is a topic for another video, because people keep saying to me, what's normal, what's healthy? You tell me what's normal and what's healthy. That's the basis of it, that it's good enough, that it's non-abusive, that it's pH neutral. If it's pH neutral in psychological and emotional terms, it will de facto be positive. It's a weird effect, I know, and maybe that metaphor doesn't work particularly well, but I'm sure most of you will grasp what I'm saying. If it's non-abusive, it's de facto positive. If there's just no pain there, if there's just an absence of a willingness to hurt and inflict damage there, it just becomes positive. Which is why, you know, if you're a person who wants to seek to be more popular and win friends and influence people, you should seek to be more neutral. Just be more neutral. You don't have to put on a big song and dance show, you don't have to make a big effort, just be there. Just offer people the gift of your presence, of your awareness, of your attention. Be there, look at them. Stop talking inside of your head whilst they're talking. Listen to the words coming out of their stupid face. Look at them and listen to them. And when they're done talking and you're done listening, then you can make words come out of your stupid face back at them that are relevant to what they just said. And what I'm saying now, some people are going, this sounds a bit pedantic and a bit silly. What's he talking about? It's the essence of awesome communication skills. You will become an awesome communicator when you learn how to do that, and people will say to you, I don't know why, but I feel like I can just tell you anything. I don't know why I just met you, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. And all it is you're offering a higher quality of attention, of intent, of clarity, and you're giving them the psychological space to be them without pushing your nonsense on them. And if somebody does that for you, they don't push their nonsense on you, they don't push their thoughts, their feelings, their agenda, their narrative, their proselytizing about how the world should be, and they just listen, then that's incredibly powerful. pH neutral is de facto positive when we're talking about human interaction. Okay? Okay, I kept it short. Yes! High five to myself. Okay, that's enough for today. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I will speak to you again soon.